Welcome to the first episode of Bets and Beers. Tyler, happy to have you with me. How's everything going out there on the West Coast?
Everything's good. Dealing with some heat, but I'm ready for the fights this weekend.
Heat should be nothing, man. I'm down at the Jersey Shore right now, hanging out outside. We got our beers going, and we're ready to talk some fights. So gambling in Jersey is legal these days. You're very close to Nevada, so obviously you could always go to Vegas and put in some bets. So let's give the people some bets that we like on these Fight Night 135, Vick versus Gaethje. So what do you think about this first fight? Luke Sanders and Ronnie Yaya. I kind of do my DraftKings podcast earlier in the week, so I give a lot of my breakdown on that. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say about these fights, and then I'll go into some of the bets I like. So what do you think about Sanders and Yaya?
So for that fight right there, I've kind of been going back and forth on it because Sanders does have the tools to beat Yaya, especially if he could keep it standing. If Yaya takes it to the ground, which Sanders has been known to give up the takedown, if Yaya's on top of him, he'll finish it via sub. But if Sanders can keep it up standing, I think that he'll have a chance to get to a decision victory. I'm personally not betting on this fight. On DraftKings, I would take action on both sides.
Yeah, I definitely do like action on both sides on this fight. I personally like Sanders, and there's a couple guys on this card that I liked earlier in the week when the odds were a little bit wider. I think Sanders at this point is a great value on DraftKings, especially at his price. Earlier in the week, I believe it was plus 165. And he's plus 105 right now. So you wouldn't take any action on this? How about any prop bets? Any of these prop bets that you like? Fight starts round 3, maybe? Fight starts round 2?
Well, initially I was looking at does not go to the distance at 150, but I really think that with Sanders being able to keep it up, I don't know if he's going to get the knockout with Yaya. It depends on which fighters show up. I'm not really too confident on either one. I personally just wouldn't touch it for bets.
I'll be honest with you, I kind of like this going to decision. So I wouldn't mind the over 2.5 rounds. I mean, you're basically it's a pick 'em to basically go over 2.5 rounds.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's great value. If you have a strong play either way, I think it's great value. Maybe for somebody else that maybe hasn't really looked at all the bets available right now. Sanders KO. If you think Sanders is going to win, it's going to be by KO. Plus 325. Yaya sub. If he wins, he's probably going to win by sub. Plus 174. That price actually went up a little bit. I mean, personally, Sanders is my pick for this fight. If I know UFC doesn't do pick him anymore, I would definitely in this spot. So next fight, Drew Dober, John Tuck. Who do you like here?
So personally, with that fight, that's another one with if Dober can keep it standing, I think that he has the better stand up. But if there's going to be a finish, Tuck has a better chance for it. And I kind of, if you're looking towards prop bets, I think Tuck inside the decision might be a good play. I'm not sure what the current line is. I was looking at it earlier, and it was
Tuck wins inside distance is plus 365.
Okay, yeah, that I would probably lean towards that if I was going to play anything in this one. I actually think this is going to be one of the more exciting fights on the card. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I like the Tuck inside the distance prop. Again, it depends on what you're looking to do. Are you looking to take something a little more risky or not? Personally, I think Dober's going to win the fight. I think that Tuck has a good shot to maybe do some damage in round 1. But Dober is coming down from 170. He was at 170 pounds and kind of took some big shots from Frank Camacho. Anyone that knows Frank Camacho knows, he's a big, strong guy. Really can put a hurting on you with his hands. And Dober took everything that he had. Camacho kind of, gassed out a little bit in that fight. And I think that Dober is real strong, and I think he's going to be able to put a little bit of a beating on Tuck. And I think in addition to that, he's going to gas. I think Tuck is going to gas, and I don't know if he's going to be able to even win round 3. So this is my hot take for the day. I was going to start by asking you some hot takes, but my hot take of the day is there's a couple fights here that I really do like live betting going into rounds 2 or rounds 3. So here's what I'm thinking. John Tuck has a very good shot of winning round 1. If you're watching this fight and you see Dober won round 1, I would live bet Dober in a second. I would live bet the decision in a second because Tuck is very, very tough. I don't think Dober is going to be able to get him out of there. I kind of think this could go to decision. I do like the Tuck inside the distance, which is what you said, because if he wins, I think he's going to win inside the distance. I don't think he has a chance to win the decision. That's just my take on it, but that's how I look at it.
Yeah, that's kind of why I said I don't really have a strong read on either one of these guys. With Dober dropping down, and Tuck's losses only really came versus top competition, so it's kind of hard to see how the fight's going to go. So I don't have a strong opinion either way. But if Tuck wins, it will be by a finish, and that's kind of why I was leaning towards that bet at some value.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you there. Let's get into this next fight. What do you think about Joanne Calderwood and Kalinja Faria?
That's actually one of my favorite bets on the card. I really like Calderwood.
Which way are you going?
I really like Calderwood.
Calderwood.
I just don't think
minus 175 now.
Yeah. I got her at minus 170 earlier. I just don't think Faria is a good fighter. I mean, basically, that's what it comes down to. Calderwood is the type of fighter that could give her problems on the feet. Even if it gets to the ground, I don't think Faria is good on the ground. Most of her record is padded by pretty much club fighters in Brazil that have terrible records. And Calderwood's
I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she has been in there with the best. She's lost to some of them, but again, it's good. I think it's good to get some losses under your belt, especially against top competition. Now, this is going to be her second fight at 125 for Calderwood, and she basically said that she couldn't do the 115 anymore. She just wasn't comfortable with that weight. She beat Valerie Letourneau at 125. That was her only fight at 125. And Letourneau, I believe, is going to get the next title shot in Bellator at 125. So, with that being right, I mean, I agree with that. Kalinja Faria is 0-2 in the UFC at 125 pounds. Like you just mentioned, her wins came with the Brazilian local scene, and I just don't think she's very good. So I do like Calderwood to win this fight. I wasn't a big fan on DraftKings, just to go back to some stuff that CG said the other day on the DraftKings podcast. But he really likes Calderwood because of her striking. She scored very high in her 2 decision wins. She's a high-volume striker. And again, if this fight goes to the ground, I personally think Calderwood's going to take it to the ground. I don't think Faria is going to take it to the ground at all. I don't know how good she is at all on the ground. But the thing with Calderwood, you can get the sub prop, and this is CG's got to get credit for this because he called it out the other day. But you can get the Calderwood sub prop right now at plus 2,055. And he thinks that if Calderwood gets it to the ground, that she's going to be better on the ground. Now, I'm not taking credit for that. CG mentioned it, but if you get it to the ground and you don't think Faria is that good on the ground, that's a great, if you want to gamble, if you want to risk something, that's a risk to take.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't think it's going to happen, but I mean, if he does, that's a great price to get. And I personally think Calderwood's going to win by decision. She's just
I think it's going to be by. I think it's going to be by decision also, and based on what he said, I think it's going to be a good cash game play on DraftKings. So if anyone's here for a little bit of DraftKings insight, that's something that we have too. Now, another fight that could go to the ground and be a submission. Our 4th fight up is Mickey Gall and George Sullivan. What do you think about Mickey Gall and George Sullivan? We kind of talked about this a little earlier, I believe.
Yeah, so Mickey Gall actually switched camps and moved out to LA and trained with Joe Schilling, and is training with Joe Schilling. Really, his hole in his game has been his striking, and he seems to be making the right moves to fix that. I personally think that he has the edge in this fight. If it goes to the ground, he's light years ahead of Sullivan on the ground. If it remains standing, Sullivan, as far as last fight goes, Sullivan has the better striking. I kind of think working with Schilling is going to even that gap and at least let him maintain what he's doing on the feet so he could get it to the ground and finish the sub.
I think one of the weird parts about the last you mentioned Sullivan's last fight, so let me mention Gall's last fight.
Well, that's what I meant.
Oh, you meant Gall's last fight?
Yeah, his striking didn't look very good last fight.
No, it didn't. It didn't. So I thought you were talking about Sullivan's. So then I'll mention Sullivan's last fight. So Sullivan's fight against Nico Price was kind of a weird fight. He was in the fight early, and then basically, he used his kicks, he used his combinations, looked pretty good, and then Nico Price just kind of pulled the rabbit out of his hat and did what Nico Price does. Again, you're talking about a guy who's very resilient. Nico Price on the ground, on the feet, strong, hurts people, and he was able to find a way to beat Sullivan. Again, Sullivan hasn't won much recently. I think he had 2 USADA violations. I think he had 2 layoffs intermittently because of USADA violations. He's 37 years old. Both of these guys are born and raised in Jersey, so Sullivan's like an old school Jersey guy. So I can appreciate both of these guys. The Greeky Gall is going to have get the best of Sullivan and be able to submit him. I don't. Do you like any bets here though?
So for the price that Gall's at, I can't bet him. Minus 370 right now for a fighter that his striking is unproven. There's too many question marks. I think he's putting it together, but it hasn't been confirmed, and I can't risk 370 on that. I'm personally fading this fight, but if you think Gall is going to win by submission, right now I think it's at plus 110 for a submission. I think that's decent value if you want some action on the fight.
Yeah, that's actually the only bet that I had written down was Gall. I actually had it written down as plus 105, but it is plus 110 right now. So yeah, I agree there. I think that's the way that Gall is going to win it. And again, when you're talking about the over under of 1.5 rounds, it is basically a pick 'em. Fight doesn't go to decision is minus 265. I think everyone kind of feels like this is gonna finish. Who's gonna finish? Probably the guy who's favored minus 340. It's gonna be Mickey Gall, and he's not gonna finish on the feet. He's gonna finish with a sub. So if you just using that reasoning, deductive reasoning kind of tells you play Mickey Gall by sub. So our next fight here is Andrew Sanchez and Marcus Perez. This is another one of my hot takes. So I'm gonna let you start off, and I'll give you my little hot take. Go ahead.
So for this fight, a lot of people that I have been talking to that know a lot of stuff about fighting, they're on Perez. I personally like Sanchez, but I feel that he's really risky. He has cardio issues and his chin is a little shaky, but I'm just not sold on Perez. So I'm interested to hear your hot take because it could sway me one way or another on this.
Well, I'll tell you this. My hot take is if you're going to bet Sanchez, that's fine. That's completely up to you. He's a very good fighter for the first 7 or 8 minutes. So, again, my hot take is I got 3 guys that I've seen gas. And what Sanchez did against Ryan James and against Anthony Smith, to be honest with you, but Ryan James was really bad. I mean, he completely gassed. And Sanchez gassed after about 3 minutes. So, again, he's a good wrestler. Very good striking. He's beat some good guys when he was in Tough at 3. Right? Didn't he beat Khalil Roundtree, I believe, in the final of that?
Yeah, he went with Roundtree.
And again, that was at 205. So again, why is he gassing? That was at 205. Now he's fighting at 185. Is the weight cut too much for him? Maybe he's kind of one of those tweeners where maybe he's a little bit small for 205. He's not that comfortable. But at 185, he just really can't do it. Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't know what it is, but there's something going on with his gas tank. So I've seen it happen twice. If it happened once, all right, maybe not that big of a deal. But I've seen it happen twice. And the Ryan James fight, that gas tank, I mean, that was bad. You know, he was dominant early, and James wound up beating him up late. You got a guy in Marcus Perez he's been in the cage with Eric Anders, and not for nothing. I know Eric Anders. We'll talk about him in a little bit. He disappointed last time out with Lyoto Machida. I really thought that he was going to be able to knock out Machida. I was a little disappointed with the way he approached that fight.
Same.
But that being said, I think that Perez is shifty. I think he's good. He's great on the ground. He actually trains with Damian Maia, BJJ, so he's great on the ground. And I also think that Perez is not the kind of guy that's gonna gas out. So I think if Sanchez loses his gas tank middle of the second round, third round, I think Perez can get a second or third round finish or win the decision. So again, if it's 1-1 going into the third, I would live bet Marcus Perez. If you see Sanchez gassing going, coming out of the first round, because against Ryan James, he gassed at the 3-minute mark. I would live bet Perez, even live bet Perez by sub. He could also knock him out because he's got like a lot of that spinning stuff that he likes to throw. He's dynamic with that stuff. But it's kind of all he threw in Anders. I don't think he wanted to really sit in the pocket and exchange with Anders. So that's all he really threw against Anders. Anything else to add, though?
So do you think that Sanchez gassing was more product of his gas tank, or that he was trying early for the finish and just went for broke and fell flat?
If I only saw the Ryan James fight, I would say maybe he was going early for the finish. But if you look at the Anthony Smith fight, he gassed in that second round. So you know what I mean? It's maybe he's normally a 7-8 minute fighter, and again, because of going for broke early, maybe that's why he really didn't last much more than that first round. But again, he didn't gas in the tough fights. So maybe because of the weight cut just does too much to his body. He just doesn't have it. Yeah, that's my thoughts. You know what I mean? I could be wrong, but again, we're not talking about a guy that does tough at 155 and then wants to fight at 145 or 145 like Corey Sandhagen with this next fight. Yeah, all of his fights have been at 145. Now he's going down to 135. We're not talking about 10 pounds. We're talking about 20-pound difference here. Yeah. So again, definitely. 20-pound difference. It could be a big enough difference that he's one of those tweeners. It's just because of his body type. You know, it's just my take again. But I like Perez by late sub. I don't know if you can live bet that. You may be able to live bet Perez once the fight starts. But I think that if Perez can, he was able to stay away from Eric Anders. If he was able to stay away from Eric Anders' power, I think he's going to be able to stay from Andrew Sanchez' power. That's just my take. So that's why I would go with Perez by sub.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm back and forth on that fight. I still haven't made up my mind who I'm officially going to go with. I think I might wait and see how Sanchez looks at weigh-ins.
Yeah, for the most part, none of these fights. I'll tell you when I have a fight that I'm just not really that sold on. All these fights, I'm kind of, pretty sold on my take on the fight. Yeah. But all right, so next fight coming through is Yuri Alcantara and Corey Sandhagen. So Sandhagen, again, I just mentioned, let's just look at, he's 8-1. His first fight, and this was all in amateurs mostly. His first fight was an amateur fight at 135. His next 8 fights were at 145. He's dropping down to 135 for this fight against Alcantara. So, Tyler, what do you think about this one?
I don't understand why he's moving down. He looked good versus Austin Arnett. Austin Arnett really isn't a great fighter by any means. So maybe he feels more comfortable at 135 with the level of competition in the UFC. He's a really dynamic striker. He got TJ Dillashaw actually vouched for him from what I've heard. But so far from what I've seen from him, I don't know if he's ready for the jump from Austin Arnett to Yuri Alcantara. Even though Alcantara is aging, I think that at plus 180, I think that he's a live dog, and I personally am going to be putting some money on him to beat Sandhagen.
On Alcantara.
On Alcantara, yeah. Not a huge bet, but it's going to be something because I don't think that Sandhagen's ready for the jump yet.
I'll be honest with you. We did the DraftKings breakdown the other day, and I was all over Alcantara. Again, I don't even know if he's ready for the jump yet, but I think that's part of the problem. Like, why is he a -2? Let me just check the odds real quick. Why is he a -250, 220 now? So why is he a -220 favorite? He's had one fight in the UFC at 145 against Austin Arnett, who looked terrible in 2 or 3 fights in the UFC at this point. So yeah. He's not good.
Sandhagen did look great in that fight, but it's the level of competition he's been fighting. Alcantara is a huge step up for him. And if you're getting plus money, significant plus money on a veteran that's been in there with some hitters versus a newcomer that is unproven, that I mean, he's mildly proven, but versus weak talent, I think that 180 is value all day. And on DraftKings, I think that he's an excellent cash game play.
And the other thing too, I think is a great. I agree with everything you said. I also kind of don't understand this line. And again, we're here for bets and brews, but we may have to change it to that instead of beers. We may have to change the bets and brews. I kind of like that better. But
I don't mind
under over under 2.5 rounds is basically a pick 'em. What do you think about that? I mean, do you not see this going to decision?
It's kind of hard to tell because I haven't seen enough of Sandhagen to know how his chin is, but definitely both of them have the striking that they could potentially rock the other. I'm personally
do you think he had
with Yuri at 180.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, to be honest with you. And again, if you want to get a little crazy, I guess you could go with the sub prop. That's not a bad bet either. All right, so I mean, for the most part, I would say Alcantara's sub is probably like plus 650, plus 700 if you wanted to get crazy, or else just go with him straight up. Next fight, we have James Krause and Warlley Alves. A lot of people do not like this fight. I'm not a huge fan of it, but there is a hot take here. But what do you think, Tyler?
I think this is Alves's fight to lose. Krause is.
You're not worried about him gassing?
Not too bad. Krause has been talking about getting out of the game and coaching. Anytime a fighter does that, usually they're 1 foot out the door. I think skill set. Krause has been one of my favorite fighters to watch on the regional scene and early in his UFC career. But I think at this point in their career, Alves is ready to pick him apart.
Yeah, I agree with you also. I don't think that I kind of hate to say it this way too, because Krause has been in the game for a while. He's a BJJ black belt. I just don't understand how he's going to get the fight to the ground.
Yeah.
So my hot take is let him get tired, and late in the second round, maybe in the third round, he'll be able to get Alves down to the ground and maybe uses BJJ. But again, if he doesn't get it to the ground, I think Alves is just going to be the thicker, bigger guy. And again, if you watch Alves on tape, like he's got big traps, big shoulders. He's a big, thick guy. You got a guy who's normally every one of his fights is at 170 pounds, and then you got James Krause, who not for nothing, but he looks small at 155.
Yeah, and Krause is coming up in weight, and at this point in the career, when he's talking about coaching and now doesn't want to do a weight cut, I mean, how much is he really training and dedicating himself? That's one of the questions that's on my mind. Yeah, I wouldn't bet Alves straight up because he's minus 360, I think, right now. But I definitely would add him in some parlays.
Yeah, I don't. I agree with you about that one. I'll tell you what, though, if you want to make a play on DraftKings, taking Krause at his price and kind of doing what you can, it's kind of a punt. But if he can get that second or third round submission, that's a great spot to be in.
Yeah,
have Krause at his price. You could do a lot with your DraftKings lineups with that if it hits.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't use him in cash games. In tournaments, though, that's a pretty solid play.
So every time I write down the odds for this fight, they get bigger. So we're up to Eric Anders and Tim Williams. Anything to add other than Eric Anders is supposed to knock this guy out early?
They're bringing Williams in just to lose. This is a fight to get Anders back on track and propel him back. The UFC has a lot invested in him. I personally thought that he was going to beat Machida in the fight. Last fight out, he did well, but in that fifth round, just Machida took over and won the decision. But I think that they really want Anders to get back to that top level, and this is a fight that's going to give him a highlight reel knockout.
And again, if you believe that, which I obviously do, Anders wins by TKO KO. Is only minus 215. So if your book allows you to parlay that prop, that's not a bad prop to parlay with something else. You know what I mean? It's almost like free money.
Even at minus 250, I would bet that straight up.
Yeah, you could bet it straight up. you know,
Yeah.
because it's probably going to come out. And not for nothing, if you've seen Tim Williams, Oscar Piachota knocked him out,
Yeah.
and he's real stiff, kind of straight up. You know, his head is ready to be knocked off. He's another Jersey guy. He's actually the South Jersey Strangler, which is where I am right now. I'm down in Beach Haven in Long Beach Island, so I'm in South Jersey. But Tim Williams is going to get destroyed in this fight. So let's not waste any more time on this. My beer's getting warm. So next fight, we got John Moraga and Davison Figueiredo. Not for nothing, I love this fight. So
All right,
I'm interested to hear your take on this one.
I kind of want to hear your take first.
Okay, yeah, you can throw it back. You can throw it back. That's all right.
I'm gonna throw it back. I really like this fight. So I kind of, not from a betting perspective, but for an actual viewer perspective, this is gonna be a fun fight.
Yes, yeah, 100%. I really don't know who's gonna win this fight. I can see a path to victory for both of these guys. So let me just break down the fight the way that I would on my DraftKings podcast. So John Moraga, he kind of has reinvented himself. He's 34 years old, so he's a little bit older. He's gonna have a little 1-inch height advantage, 2-inch reach disadvantage. He was a wrestler at Arizona State, but he just doesn't use his wrestling, and some people are kind of questioning what kind of wrestling he's actually done. So let's just throw that out there. Lots of subs. If you look at his fights, he's got a bunch of wins by sub. And again, he's 19-6. He's fought all the best guys. He's fought DJ. He's fought Dobson. He's fought Pettis, Wilson Heiss, Dustin Ortiz, which I'm actually a pretty big fan of Dustin Ortiz. I actually picked him to win that fight a couple of weeks ago. Benavidez, Scoggins. So he's fought everybody. You know what I mean? And he kind of reinvented himself, and then came back and beat some pretty good prospects on the way back. Ashkan, Bibliotov, like first round KO. He's beat some good guys, so we know he's going to be fine if the fight hits the ground and he's on top. He's going to be fine. If the fight hits the ground, he could go for subs, but he kind of allows himself to just stay on the bottom, which is the one thing that worries me, because Figueiredo, if he gets on top of you, he's going to look to ground and pound you. He's going to look to sub you. Figueiredo has no interest in going to decision. He's 14-0, 14 fights, 12 of them have been finished. So I'm going to guess that this fight is probably going to finish. And again, I love that bet. If you want to take under 2.5 rounds, that's plus 220. If you want to take inside the distance, that's plus 175. I think there's a lot of value in those lines. You're talking about a guy who finishes, fighting against another guy in Moraga who also has a tendency to finish people. He can be finished or finish. So I think that's a great bet if you can get that at 2-1. And again, the line looks like it's moving in the opposite direction. So what happens here? Who's the better technical striker? Moraga. Figueiredo, though, he's wild. His striking, he throws heavy punches, kind of puts his whole body into his punches. He puts his whole body into his punches to the point where the guy that he's fighting against doesn't even know really, like, you can't even counter him because his body is like out of position when he throws these heavy punches. Is he going to be able to get him down to the ground? He doesn't necessarily shoot like single legs or double legs. He does more of like body locks and clinch work, and tries to get you down in that way, which I think, again, that could work. And then once he gets down there, these guys can work their sub game. Both of them, once the fight gets to the ground, they can both sub each other out. So it's going to be a pretty good game going back and forth on the ground. So I kind of like this to finish. I just don't know who's going to finish it, but I think someone's going to get finished here. So that's more or less my take. But it's a great fight. May last a round, may last 3 rounds, but it's a great fight.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that I personally feel that Moraga is better at this point in his career. But that's not saying that Figueiredo can't prove me wrong in this fight. I think it's going to tell a lot where Figueiredo is in his career at this point. The only reason I lean towards Moraga is because Figueiredo's toughest fight to date was versus Brooks, and he really faced some adversity. I mean, he looked good, but it was a really close fight, and I think Moraga's slightly better than Brooks.
Tyler, how'd you score that fight? Did you think he won that fight?
I thought it could have went either way. I personally had Figueiredo winning a little bit, but I could have seen it either way. I don't think it was a robbery.
I don't know if you saw it, but one of the judges actually scored the fight 30-27 for Brooks.
Really?
Yeah, I watched the fight the other day. One of the rounds was 30-27. That was shocking to me.
Yeah,
I thought it was split, but I didn't think it was 30-27 for either guy.
Yeah, well, and that's another thing when it comes down to judging. One of the things that concerns me about this card when in fights that we think's going to decision, it's in a commission that is not really experienced with mixed martial arts fights, which usually means that their judges are not trained and going through a lot of training programs, and usually that ends up in some really weird judging scores. And so any fight that we think goes to decision, I'm a little bit hesitant to pull the trigger on some of these bets.
So my Calderwood bet is not looking too good anymore.
I mean, I think Calderwood's gonna win that easily. Even a bad judge, I think, will be able to score that for her.
Well, I tell you what, we have an Angela Hill Courtney Casey fight coming up, so that the judging may influence that.
Yeah.
But what do you think then? Any bets you like with this Moraga Figueiredo fight?
Right now the Moraga line is plus 135 on 5 dimes. I'm personally going to take that bet. I think that he's better at this point, and until Figueiredo proves me wrong, I'm gonna stick with Moraga. I still think Moraga's top level.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I still like Moraga. He's in my cash game lineup right now in DraftKings. So I do agree with you there. I don't want to stay too long on this fight. Brian Barberena and Jake Allen, unless you got a hot take. I think Barberena is going to get him out of there within 2 rounds. What do you think?
My hot take is pair him with Alves and add in somebody else in a parlay.
Okay, no, it's exactly where I'm looking at. Are you looking at the knockout? Do you think he knocks him out, or?
Really, I think he can finish either way. He might knock him out. At minus 110 for a Barberena knockout, that's not a terrible play. I kind of like that the fight won't start round 3 at minus 149, because I think he's going to put him out in the first, but if not the first, the second for sure.
Right. And again, if Ellenberger, let's say there is any shot of Ellenberger winning this fight, I think it's going to be in the first round. Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a flash knockout in the first round. Yeah. So yeah, if to not start the round 3 is a good bet. And again, any of this is on the Jersey Boys podcast. We are hosting this, and betting is legal in New Jersey now. So anybody can get on DraftKings, run out to the Meadowlands track, head down to Monmouth Park and put in these bets.
Over here in Cali, I'm waiting for it to get legal. I have a 4-hour drive to place these.
Are they talking about it in Cali?
I haven't heard much except the federal laws.
Okay.
Yeah.
You would think Cali is very progressive. They're trying to split the state into 3 at one point a couple of weeks ago, right? So you never know. Cali could be up next. So Angela Hill and Courtney Casey. I'm assuming we both think that this is going to be a decision fight. So based on the shoddy judging that you just talked about, what's your breakdown for this Angela Hill Courtney Casey fight? The line's getting a little closer there. Angela Hill the other night was minus 140. It's minus 125 now.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of people are on Courtney Casey. I personally love Angela Hill's style, just for her dynamic striking. I'm personally not taking anybody in this fight because I do think it's a 50-50 fight. And especially with the judging out there, and depending on what they're looking for, I'm not going to touch this one personally.
I'm a little concerned with Courtney Casey because I mentioned that I'm repeating myself with a lot of the things that I wrote down. But when you watch a couple of her fights, she just finds a way to lose. Yeah. And that's just concerning with me. You're talking about judging right now. And when we're talking about judging, we're talking about winning rounds. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you win by a little or you win by a lot. But she does those little things that lose rounds by a little bit, and you lose 2 rounds, obviously you're going to lose by at least a split decision, if not worse. And I just feel like she's the kind of person. I believe she's like 1-5 in decision fights. So,
Yeah. Well, I think last fight she had the fight. It was hers to win, and she made a mental mistake versus Watterson and lost the split decision because of it.
the takedown, letting Watterson get the takedown, and then just basically staying on her back and
didn't even fight it.
Doing nothing. Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. So I was being vague. You went very specific on it, but that's basically what it is. So we got 2 fights to go here. I think they're 2 good betting fights. Earlier in the week, again, I started my tape study from the top down. And since we had about 3 weeks, I probably studied Andre Fili, Michael Johnson about 2.5 weeks ago. And I said Andre Fili is going to win this fight. And now all of a sudden he's now the favorite in this fight. So I'm interested to see. I just mentioned it to you before because I heard it on a podcast earlier in the day. But what do you think about Andre Fili and Michael Johnson here?
Yeah, I was like you when I first heard about this fight and was researching. I was thinking that Fili should have opened up as the favorite, especially with his win over Bermudez last fight. He looked like a good fighter, like he's much improved over what he was before. But on the same note, this could be a spot for Michael Johnson to kind of get his feet back under him in the division. I'm not touching anybody on the betting line. I kind of want to see what's happening with the line flip. Maybe there's some injury news that's coming out that I haven't heard about yet. Yeah, I kind of want to research more because Johnson's last fights, with the exception of Elkins, he's lost to Khabib and Gaethje, those 2 top fighters. So I'm kind of curious.
Dariush, Nate Diaz,
yeah. So I'm kind of curious to see what news came out to affect the line swing. Yeah.
It could have just been, one big bet or a few big bets coming in on Andre Fili.
Yeah. Are people saying Johnson was 1-5 or 1-5 in his last 6 fights?
I feel like when lines move that much, I don't think it's 1,000 people putting in $50 to $100 bets. I feel like it's one guy putting in a substantial bet.
Yeah.
When you know what I mean? When it flips like this, and again, like automatically, you can kind of look on here and see the line movement. Let me just see, but I think it kind of went drastically. Yeah, it was. I mean, if you look at it earlier in the day today, it just dropped. So he was riding at plus 119 as of like plus 118 as of 12 o'clock this afternoon. And then now all of a sudden he's minus 115, minus 120. So again, somebody put a big bet in right there. That wasn't a gradual thing. That was one big bet in my opinion.
Yeah.
And with that being said, that bet, if I had the money, I probably would have put the same bet in because I kind of think Fili's going to win. You know what I mean? I just don't think Michael Johnson is really a decision fighter. He's kind of a flash knockout like he did to Dustin Poirier. He was able to catch him with a right hook. That's the kind of fighter that I think he is. And for the most part, everybody's worried about his left hand. The only win he has in his last 6 fights is he caught Dustin Poirier, who's about to get a title shot if he beats Nate Diaz. He caught Dustin Poirier with a right hook, a counter right hook in the pocket, which is, again, what I think Andre Fili is not going to let him do. He's not going to exchange in the pocket. He's going to enter the pocket, 1-2, 3-punch combination, get out of the pocket. That's number one. That's the first thing he's going to do. Fili is also very, very good late in rounds, going for that takedown, I should say, getting that takedown and just riding out the last 30 seconds to a minute from top. And I don't think Michael Johnson, based on what I've seen and again, take Khabib out of there, but even Elkins was able to get him down and submit him, and some of these other guys were able to get him down. I think he's going to ride out the rest of the rounds on top. So I think Fili by decision is a great bet. I actually wrote it down. At one point, it was plus 297. Right now, it's like plus 160. So it's lost a lot of value, but I think that's more or less where Fili wins this.
Yeah.
So we got our main event. Tyler, let's go. First, Bets and Brews podcast. I just changed the name officially. James Vick and Justin Gaethje. All week, everybody's been talking about how James Vick is going to win this fight. And then all of a sudden today, I hear some people agreeing with me on Justin Gaethje. So where's your head at?
I'm agreeing with you. I never
Okay.
thought that Vick was going to win this from the start. I think the notion that Vick is some knockout artist is pretty far fetched. I know he does have some notable wins on his record, but the fight versus Duffy, I kind of feel that Duffy was in above his head in that fight at that point. Really, I don't think Vick is a top level fighter. Personally, I think he's good, the gatekeeper to the top, but I still think that Gaethje, even though he's taken some losses lately, I still think he has the ability to put it together and be a top notch fighter. And that Vick fight versus Dariush, where Vick got caught and knocked out, that one, it keeps playing over in my head that Gaethje's the same type of fighter that could put that pressure and test that chin again. And I think Gaethje's going to put him out.
Listen, I agree with everything that you've said. Just a little bit more analysis based on what James Vick is gonna do. He's gonna come to the middle of the ring, hit gloves, and then he's gonna slowly back himself right into the cage to the outside of the octagon.
Yeah.
So again, nobody fights Justin Gaethje like that. All right. So this fight is gonna go where James Vick wants it to go, because that's where he's gonna go. Okay. Mm-hmm. So now Justin Gaethje again is gonna close distance and get into Vick. He's going to outstrike him volume-wise. Now, again, can Vick catch him? Yeah, absolutely he can catch him. By the way, I don't know if you see me. I got, like, mosquitoes all over the place. So I'm glad this is the last fight, because Jersey right now, the mosquitoes are out, man.
Yeah.
But that's what I see. Vick's going to be back against the cage on the outside ring of the octagon, and what's going to wind up happening? He's going to use his kicks. He's going to try to keep distance. Again, he creates problems for people, and people are scared of his length. So he's able to use that length to his advantage and keep distance. Gaethje doesn't really care about that, right? He's going to fight him like Beneil Dariush did. Beneil Dariush got right into James Vick's face, pressured him, and made him exchange. And again, James Vick knocked out, you just mentioned Joe Duffy. He knocked him out with that inside, uppercut, kind of right underneath his chin. In the exchange, they got into an exchange in the middle of the ring, but that's not usually what James Vick does. So again, Vick only has one loss. The one loss was to Dariush. And why did he lose that fight? Because, he was able to just get up into his body and basically hurt him with the pressure. I think that Gaethje has two ways to hurt him. I think he could hurt him with the pressure, and I think he could hurt him with those leg kicks. Everyone wants to keep talking about Justin Gaethje. Listen to Poirier, listen to Alvarez after their fights talk about Justin Gaethje's leg kicks. I mean, the leg kicks are ridiculous. And James Vick, that's his advantage, right? His size. He's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage and a 4-inch height advantage. Gaethje's going to be able to chop him down with those leg kicks and chop off those 3-4 inches by the second and third round. The later this fight goes, the more I think Gaethje's going to win. If Vick can't get him out of there within the first, 8 to 10 minutes of this fight, I think Gaethje's going to just wear him out, wear out his legs. And I even like Gaethje to do some wrestling here. I know everybody keeps talking about, he wants to put on a show and Dana White loves him and all this other stuff. I just listened to, they did an interview on the Fox Wednesday night show that they do with Bisping and Kenny Florian. And Gaethje's talking to them, and he's like, yeah, Dana White loves me. I see it, even if win or lose fights, I'm gonna still be in this thing. And yes, he's right, but you don't want to win. Like, just do what you got to do to win.
Yeah.
And I just feel like his wrestling, not completely. I'm not talking about completely going after wrestling, but just working in the wrestling, winning rounds with wrestling. You're having success after 2 or 3 minutes, win the round. Don't the guy get back into the round. Win the round with the wrestling. If you're able to get on top, maybe some ground and pound to get rid of it. It takes its toll for that next round. Even Gaethje talked about I'm sorry to cut you off. My last thing, and then I'll throw it back to you. Gaethje, one of the things that he did with Poirier is he thought that Poirier was going to really struggle going into that 4th round. He basically is quoted 1 or 2 more leg kicks, and I thought he was going to go down. What winds up happening? You let somebody stay in a fight, and they're going to find a way to win it. And I think that's going to be the problem with James Vick. James Vick, the roles are going to be reversed. James Vick is going to let Gaethje stay in the fight. Usually Gaethje lets other guys stay in the fight by not using his wrestling, going for ground and pound, trying to get them out of there, really putting them in a bad spot, sucking all that energy out because he just wants to exchange. So again, you're letting the other guy clip you. And that's basically what winds up happening. Even Poirier, think about the Poirier-Alvarez fight, right? Poirier has Alvarez hurt. He doesn't go for the takedown. He goes for the knockout. What happens? Alvarez is able to clip Poirier, puts him right back into the fight. So if Gaethje is able to hurt Vick in any way, with the leg kicks, any way, just take him down. Once he's on his back, he's not going to be able to hurt you the same way he could on his feet. That's just my analysis. What do you think? Agree, disagree?
Expanding on that wrestling thing, I mean, I don't think that Gaethje is going to. I think he could, but I don't think that he's going to. I think that he's going to have the advantage standing up. Even with the length, he's going to put the pressure on him, and the length gets taken away when you get in close in his face. And I don't think that Vick is the type of striker that's going to knock him out in one shot. Gaethje's tough. But going back to the wrestling aspect, before the Poirier fight, I was listening to Chael Sonnen's podcast. Sonnen he kind of has a love for wrestlers, and he was saying that Gaethje is a legit wrestler. His college credentials, he said that Gaethje is a really good wrestler. He just likes putting on exciting shows. But when you have that wrestling base, you have that to fall back on. And if this is the fight that he chooses to exploit that, I think it'll catch Vick off guard. So I think that you're right. He does have that tool in his back pocket. If he chooses to do that, it'll catch Vick off guard, and he will have the upper hand. But personally, I feel that he's a better striker in general also. So
you feel Gaethje's a better striker?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's basically it. Tyler, what'd you think about your first podcast? I heard a lot of people may be jealous that I got you on a podcast before anybody else. What you feel about the first?
I was a little nervous about it. This is my first ever podcast, so a little bit nervous. Few other sites were trying to get me on there, but we talk fights all the time, so I felt this is the place I should come.
This is the place to go. So if you talk fights off the air, you can obviously talk fights on there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, again, what other people need to understand is I kind of sold you on the beers and bets podcast. So the beer portion of it kind of got you loose a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right. So people be on the lookout for I think we're going to change it up. I think it's going to be bets and brews moving forward. I got some Coors Light left, so I'm going to sit here and enjoy. Hopefully you enjoyed and win some money with these bets. Tyler, any last words? Maybe let the people know where they can find you on Twitter or anywhere else.
My Twitter handle is @TySlice23. If you guys have any questions or anything that you would like on any future shows or anything, hit me up, drop me a DM, send me a message, and we'll do our part to talk about it.
All right, and we may be dropping an exclusive right now. Ty, I'm putting you on I booked Vegas today.
Yeah.
Are you coming to Vegas? Are we doing a live show in Vegas?
Well, we'll talk about it. We'll figure it out.
He's stuttering. He's stuttering. All right, that's all for the brews.
I love Vegas.
That's all for the Bets and Brews podcast. Have a good night. Win some bets this weekend.